Paulo Costa is back in the UFC, and the UFC is talking about Costa versus Chimaev as a main event in Sweden. So I decided to run with that idea and build a full card around Paulo Costa versus Khamzat Chimaev. Let's say this takes place in Sweden. Let's say this takes place in like June or July, okay? 5-round main event. We got Paulo Costa versus Khamzat Chimaev as my main event. I'm going to give you a full main card and the prelims, so stay tuned for all of those fights. But yeah, I'm going to go to the opener of my main card here in Sweden. I think we're going to have to go to the light heavyweight division if I'm not mistaken. I want to do Alexander Gustafson versus Modestas Bukauskas. Bukauskas is coming off his successful return to the UFC against Tyson Pedro at UFC 284. He's got a couple wins in Cage Warriors, I believe, and fought his way back to the UFC. Obviously, Gustafson's on a bit of a losing streak right now, and this is probably going to be his retirement fight. So I've decided to give him every chance I can. I'm giving Gustafson a white opponent, and you guys, if you know, you know. Okay, I'm giving him every chance I can. But when I was making this fight, I was thinking, okay, if Gustafson loses, which is not outside the realm of possibility, let's be honest, at this point in his career, he's losing to a guy like it couldn't happen to a nicer guy, dude. Bukauskas has fought his way back to the UFC from a brutal injury when they cut him when he was injured, which is a fucked up thing to do. He's fought his way back to the UFC. He's earned his stripes. He's come back, improved himself. So if he beats Gustafson, that's a huge win for this young guy, and I think that's really cool for him. And if Gustafson wins, the crowd is going to be absolutely electric. I put him on the main card because he deserves to retire in front of a sold-out arena. None of them are going to leave. Okay, Glover to Brazilian fans, by the way. Thank you, guys. Good job. Not you, Mackenzie Dunn. You're good. You're okay. We're cool. But yeah, so I think Gustafson versus Bukauskas opening up this main card. Probably a finish, let's be honest. And a very, very touching moment when Gustafson retires, win, lose, or draw, after this fight in front of a sold-out Swedish crowd. So I think that's a really good way to open the card. Moving on, we're going to go into the women's flyweight division. Do not click off the video. I swear to God, I'm sorry. I just have to be realistic a little bit. I'm going to go with someone that fought very recently and someone that the UFC fans love or they love to hate. I'm going to do Joanne Wood versus Molly McCann. I think this is a really fun matchup for both of these girls. Two just outside the rankings, you know, don't necessarily need a tough up-and-comer against them. They're both on the older side, so I think this would be a fun matchup to use both of them. There's not a high chance that this ends up as a snooze fest on the ground or someone just getting absolutely dominated. I think this would be a kickboxing match, probably a split decision. Whoever wins, it's a good moment, and I think this would be a really fun fight for the crowd. And, you know, Molly McCann, she's still going to bring some eyeballs. People that don't like her, people that do like her, I think she's going to bring some attention to this card, so I think her being on the main card makes a lot of sense, in my opinion. So this would be a fun fight to do at flyweight, I think. I don't have a huge... If this got announced, I wouldn't be like, oh my god, I'm going to skip that. I'd be like, oh yeah, it'll be a good fight. So that's my thoughts on it, at least, alright? Let's move on to my featured fight. I forgot what I made for my featured fight. I love doing these videos because I make these cards and then I'm like, oh, I don't know what the fucking fight is. Featured bout, I remember now. Another guy that recently fought on UFC 286, took 0 damage, so I'm just going to bring him straight back in June or July in a featured fight. Let's do Randy Brown versus Gunnar Nelson in the welterweight division. I think this would be a really fun matchup. Either Randy Brown styles on Gunnar Nelson and jabs his face off or KOs him, or Gunnar Nelson submits Randy Brown in 2 rounds and the crowd goes mental. So I think this would be a really cool matchup at welterweight. Like I've said in the past, when I look for a fun fight, I go to the welterweight division and I pick number 32 versus number 37. Let's do it. It's always good fights. You know this fight would deliver. You look at it on paper and you go, fuck, either one of these guys is going to get submitted or one of these guys is going to get finished, or Randy Brown's going to have a good performance by decision. Either way, this should be a good fight, and I think this makes sense as a realistic featured fight the UFC would do on a Sweden card. Obviously, I could have gone out and got fucking some ranked people, but let's be real, the UFC's not going to stack this card. If Chimaev versus Costa is the main event, you know you're going to watch it. I know I'm going to watch it. You know they're going to sell out the arena. They know they're going to sell. So why would I stack the fuck out of this, dude? But that's my featured fight, okay? Now, for the co-main event, I'm a genius. You guys know that. You guys that know me know that very well, that I'm a genius. The UFC just announced Brendan Allen versus Jack Hermanson as a main event of a fight night. Basically, let's have a mid-off in the main event of a fight night in the Apex. No, we're not doing that. So what I've decided to do, instead of 5 rounds of a mid-off, of who's the least mid guy at middleweight, like who's that guy at middleweight that's going to be like 8 through 10 for the rest of their career, Let's not have 5 rounds of it. Let's make it the co-main event in Sweden in front of a sold-out crowd. Let's do Jack Hermanson versus Brendan Allen as the co-main event to Khamzat Chimaev versus Paulo Costa. I think that's a way more exciting fight. You can scrap the fucking thought that these two were going to main event, because they're not main event worthy. Let's be honest. We'd call it out if it was women's division, but for the men's division, I'm going to call it out as well. This is not a fucking main event. This is a solid co-main event, like prelim headliner right here. And I'm not fucking having this as a main event. Fuck that. This is my co-main event in Sweden. I think Brendan Allen's probably going to win this because Jack Hermanson just seems to like not care. Either that or Jack Hermanson will have a crazy good performance for no reason and then lose his next fight to someone unranked. So who knows, honestly. I would just rather 3 rounds of this at a higher pace than 5 rounds of Jack Hermanson striking. I don't know. Let me know if you agree down below that you'd rather see 3 rounds of this than 5 rounds of Jack Hermanson like having a seizure in the middle of the cage trying to box. Let me know what you think. So that's my co-main event. And then obviously in the main event, I disapprove 100%. We got Costa versus Chimaev, 5 rounds in Sweden. Tell me this shit wouldn't be fucking crazy. This would be so cool, bro. So I think we go all out. We get Jack Hermanson co-main event. We get Gustafson retirement fight. We get, Molly McCann on the card. We get Randy Brown versus Gunnar Nelson. I think this is a really cool main card, and obviously this main event will be really exciting. I'd probably say I'd lean Chimaev, but I wouldn't be surprised if Paulo Costa pulled off the upset, because he's quite a bad matchup for Chimaev. I got to agree, he's not as bad of a matchup as Whitaker, who I think would just straight up beat Chimaev, but I think Costa will give him trouble. I hope the UFC makes this fight. I think they're going to. Just build a whole card out of it, because it will sell. It will make money. It will be a big deal. So hopefully this is what the UFC does with this main card. Now I'm going to give you my prelims very, very quickly, okay, and then I'll get you out of here. My first prelim, I'm going to go Anton Tokaj versus Tafon Nchukwi. I forgot his name for a sec, because he just looked at me like... He looks like he just woke up, and the UFC was like, alright, take this photo, bro. You're fighting Anton Tokaj, bro. He's like, huh? So, I'm going to go with Anton Tokaj versus Tafon Nchukwi on the prelims. Obviously, there's other fighters that I would put in these prelims, but, right now, I'm going to say Tokaj versus Nchukwi, probably going to be a finish, or, at least a decent fight on the prelims on this Sweden card, and, he's Swedish, so in case you couldn't tell, this guy right here, this blonde, skinny, tall, white guy, is actually Swedish, so, yeah, he actually belongs on this card quite well. My second prelim that I want to see, I'm going to go with Roman Kopylov versus Jun Yong Park, I believe. Very, very fun fight at middleweight. I think Kopylov's a really fun fighter to watch at middleweight. His striking is looking really good. He seems to have improved a lot, sorry. And same with Park. Park is a dangerous guy. He's a finisher, man. So he got a really good submission over Dennis Tululin, I believe, in his last fight. So I think get 2 finishes together. Kind of a foreign flair to the fight as well. You see the theme here. I think this would be a really fun matchup on the middleweight division on the prelims of Chimaev versus Costa. Like I said, I'm trying to get finishes. I'm trying to get exciting fights on these prelims. Nobody gives a fuck about anything else. If you're watching the prelims, you just want finishes and you want it to go by quick so that you can get to the main card. So that's my thought process here, and I think this is a really cool matchup at middleweight that makes a lot of sense. Last fight, my prelim headliner. I literally do not remember what fight I made here. We're about to find out together in 3, 2, 1. Boom. Oh my god, bro. This is actually a sick fight. Okay, lightweight division. Prelim headliner. We're going to do Nasrat Haqparast versus Nurullo Aliyev, undefeated. Khabib 2.0 versus Kelvin Gastelum. The 2 biggest weight missers of all time going head-to-head for the championship of who eats more tiramisu. I need to find out. And I think... No, all jokes aside, I think this would be a really cool matchup. I think Haqparast is a very dangerous striker. He needs to prove himself against grapplers going forward. He's from Germany, so I think this makes a lot of sense to take place in a Sweden card. Nurullo Aliyev, very, very good wrestler, very, very good grappler. And we're gonna build up some hype, so let's put him as the prelim headliner on a Khamzat Chimaev undercard. I almost had him opening up the main card, but I wanted Gustafson to have his moment. And I think Randy Brown versus Gunnar Nelson probably belongs on the main card more than this fight. Just in terms of attention and, the fan response. But, man... Nasrat Haqparast versus Nurullo Aliyev. I think that's a pretty good fight. I think that's a good fight to make. So let me know what you think of this card down below. What other fights would you like to see on this Sweden card? And Who do you think would win these fights that I've made? What do you think of them? Let me know everything that you think down below. Make sure you drop a like if you enjoy the matchmaking videos. Subscribe for more. I'm going to do another one this week as well. Building a Montreal pay-per-view card because I believe UFC 289 is going to be in Montreal. So I'm going to be building that card this week. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, boys, thank you for watching. Have a good one. Goodbye.